They said I wanted money. They said I wanted fame. They said I wanted pity. None of them were there when the storm came. None of them heard my voice when I screamed for help at night inside the mansion of the Dumont family. My name is Zola, and everything you are about to hear is true. When I first met Kofi Dumont, I was not looking for love. I was looking for a job, a little peace, a small space in the world that felt safe. He was charming, tall, kind in the way rich men can pretend to be kind. His smile carried confidence, his words carried warmth. He stopped his car one rainy night and offered me a ride home. I should have said no, but I didn't. That decision changed my life forever. He was not an ordinary man. His father, Sterling Dumont, was one of the richest shipping magnates in West Africa. His mother, Mrs. Odette Dumont, lived as if the world revolved around her pearls. When Kofi asked me to marry him, I thought I had found my forever. I was wrong. The wedding was beautiful, flowers, lights, laughter, but somewhere deep inside, I felt like a visitor in my own life. In the first months, I tried to be the perfect wife. I smiled even when I was tired. I cooked meals the chefs could have made better. I laughed at jokes I didn't understand. The Dumonts lived in a mansion that looked like a palace. I often walked through its halls at night, my footsteps echoing on marble floors, wondering if anyone in that house was truly happy. Kofi began to change after the honeymoon. His voice grew sharp. His eyes looked through me instead of at me. When he drank, his temper exploded. The first time he hit me, I stood in silence, too shocked to cry. The second time, I packed a small bag, but before I could leave, his mother appeared in my doorway. She smiled like nothing had happened and said, "My dear, every marriage has storms. Be patient." Her perfume filled the room. Her words felt like a warning. Days turned into weeks. Kofi stayed out late, I stayed home, pretending everything was fine. I would sit near the window, watching the rain, whispering prayers no one heard. The mansion had many rooms, but none felt like mine. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining again. Kofi was gone. I went downstairs for water. Sterling, my father-in-law, was in his study, half drunk, his voice unusually gentle. "Zola," he said, "come in for a minute, I want to show you something about Kofi's investments." I hesitated, but politeness won. I stepped inside. The smell of whiskey and smoke filled the room. He closed the door. He talked about family, loyalty, gratitude. His tone changed. The smile faded. When he touched my arm, I froze. His hand moved again, slower, firmer. I said no. He didn't listen. The room spun. My voice broke. When I escaped, I ran through the corridor barefoot, the rain outside drowning out my cries. When I told Kofi, he didn't believe me. He laughed bitterly. "You think my father would touch you? You disgust me." He called me a liar. That night he left, and by morning his mother came to me, calm as always. "Whatever happened," she said, "keep it quiet. You'll destroy us all." She pressed a diamond bracelet into my hand as if silence could be bought. I threw it away. The weeks that followed were heavy with shame. I stopped eating, stopped speaking. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know whether to cry or pray. I wanted to believe the child was Kofi's. Mrs. Odette found out quickly. "You will carry the baby," she said. "And you will say nothing." She arranged doctors, nurses, and guards, not out of care but control. Kofi refused to touch me. He refused to look at me. When my son was born, I named him Kian. The nurse placed him in my arms, and for the first time in months, I smiled. He was small, fragile, and perfect. Kofi stared at him and said, "He's not mine." He left the hospital that same day. The newspapers soon found their story. Gold digger wife claims billionaire father-in-law assaulted her. Cameras flashed, lies spread, my life turned into a circus. I took Kian and ran. I rented a tiny room above a laundromat. I washed clothes for strangers to buy milk for my son. People recognized me and whispered. Children pointed. Men mocked. Some women pitied. I kept my head down and worked. One evening, as I closed the shop, a woman approached me. She introduced herself as Imani, a journalist. I believe you, she said softly. I laughed bitterly. Everyone says that until they don't. She handed me a folder. Inside were photos, testimonies, and a missing persons report for a young woman named Aliyah, Sterling's former secretary. You're not the first, Imani whispered. I opened the file slowly. Each page was pain on paper. The same pattern, promises, threats, silence. My tears fell on her photograph. I realized that what happened to me was part of something much bigger. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. Imani helped me contact a lawyer. We gathered evidence quietly. The night before the case was filed, I sat beside Kian as he slept. His small hand rested on mine. I whispered, I will not let them erase me. When the court day came, cameras filled the entrance. I walked past them, my knees trembling but my heart steady. Sterling sat in his suit, older, colder, staring at me like I was dirt. Kofi sat behind him, jaw clenched. The judge asked, Mrs. Dumont, do you have evidence? I nodded. My lawyer played the recording, Sterling's drunken voice, my name, my pleas. The courtroom fell silent. Mrs. Odit gasped. Kofi stood up and stormed out. Sterling said nothing. The judge ended the hearing quickly, but I knew that silence meant something had shifted. The next morning, everything changed. Headlines read, Zola Dumont speaks, billionaire under investigation. Women started coming forward, 1, then 3, then 10. Each story mirrored mine. Sterling's empire began to crack. Investors pulled out, foundations collapsed, his image shattered. One night Kofi called. His voice was broken. Zola, he said, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I listened, but there was nothing left to forgive. Sorry couldn't bring back the woman I used to be. The trial dragged on for months. Sterling's lawyers painted me as unstable, greedy, vengeful. They said I wanted attention. But every time I took the stand, I spoke calmly, truthfully. When Imani testified, she exposed evidence of missing women and payments from the Dumont accounts. The final day of the trial, the recording was played again. Sterling's voice filled the room. The jurors looked away in disgust. The verdict came quietly, guilty. The old man who once told me I should be grateful was led away in handcuffs. Mrs. Odit fainted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted my name. I didn't smile. Justice doesn't feel like joy, it feels like breathing after drowning. Years have passed since that day. I live in a small house near the sea now. The air smells like salt and freedom. Kian is 5. He runs barefoot on the sand, laughing, his curls bouncing in the sunlight. Sometimes he asks, Mama, where's Daddy? I kneel, hold his face, and say, he's far away, my love, but you have me. At night, when the waves crash against the shore, I remember the mansion, the cold floors, the silence that nearly swallowed me. I remember how everyone told me to stay quiet. But silence is a cage, and truth is the key. I often speak at shelters now. I tell women who sit in shadows, you are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not alone. When I look into their eyes, I see my past self, the girl who thought her voice didn't matter. Sometimes I see Kofi on TV, living abroad, trying to rebuild his reputation. He never talks about me. That's fine. My story is no longer his to tell. Sterling died in prison. The newspapers wrote, the Dumont legacy ends. But I know the legacy didn't end, it transformed. It became a lesson, a warning, and a whisper of strength for every woman who has been told to shut up and endure. When I walk through the market now, people still recognize me. Some smile, some stare. One woman once touched my arm and said, "You gave us courage." I nodded and walked away, tears in my eyes. I've learned that courage isn't loud. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just the act of waking up and saying, "Not today." Kian loves to draw. He once drew a picture of me with a crown on my head. I asked, "Why the crown?" He said, "Because you're the queen who beat the bad men." I laughed until I cried. I'm not a queen. I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who refused to disappear. The world tried to define me with their words, liar, gold digger, disgrace, but I defined myself with truth. They thought my silence was fear. It was strength gathering its breath. Now, when I look in the mirror, I no longer see the broken girl who stood in that mansion's hallway, crying in the rain. I see a survivor. A mother. A voice. They tried to silence me, but they only made me louder. And if you ever meet someone like me, someone who carries pain in her eyes and fire in her heart, believe her. Because sometimes the smallest whisper can shake the mightiest walls.